You don't want me to start. We'll start. It's going to be bad. Good evening. Hope you're all well. Today we're learning Maseches Shavuos Daf Gimel and starting at the open of the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Beis and Beis. And the Gemara asks what I would imagine is a pretty obvious question. The Gemara says, Michti, Tana mi Makos Salik. We just finished Maseches Makos. Like literally, we just finished Maseches Makos. Ma'ashna Datani Shavuos. What's the link, right? We're Jews. We juxtapose things all the time. Smichus Parshios. Why is it that we went from Maseches Makos to Maseches Shavuos? Says the Gemara, because Mishum Detani, what did we learn in Maseches Makos on Daf Kaf? There we learned about getting haircuts. And the halacha is Chayv al Harosh Shtayim, that when it comes to getting haircuts, it's possible to do one action and have two isurim. Echad mikan ve'echad mikan. Remember, we learned that if one were to straighten this part of their hair, so you have all the hair in the back, and then you straighten this part with a razor, so then that's one isser. Achas mikan v'achas mikan. We also learned ve'al hazakan on the beard. Shtayim mikan v'shtayim mikan v'achas milamata, by the joints. So I don't really know what that means, because we only have one set of joints here, because the whole jawbone is on this hinge. So here and somewhere around here, and about by the chin. Again, the Rishonim struggle to know exactly what that means. But what we see over here too is that chada, it's one isser, the mechayv latarte. It's one isser that when you do that isser, you can trigger various isurim, which is quite similar to what we see in Shavuos. Therefore, Tana Shavuos, shtayim shein arba. We're talking about isurim that have multipliers. So just like by haircuts, you can do one action and have two isurim, so too by Shavuos, you can do two actions and have four isurim, and so forth and so on. Why in our Mishnah? In the beginning of the Mishnah, Daf Beis, did we list? If you look back at our Mishnah, we listed Shavuos, Yedias Hatuma, Yitzias Shabbos, Maros Negoim. We quoted all of them. Umashna Gabi Yitzios Shabbos, Umaros Negoim, and those other Masechtas by Shabbos in the Mishnah there and by the Mishnayos and Negoim. To look Tani Lahulakulu. Why over here do we have all the cases mentioned, 4 cases, but over there by Shabbos and Negoim, we only mentioned the one of that particular sugya, but nothing else. So says the Gemara, Amre, because Shavuos v'yodios atuma degabe hadadik sivan. There by the psukim, they are taught together. V'damyan ahadade b'korban olav yored. They also have a common denominator, that when it comes to Shavuos and yodios hatuma, we are talking about the korban olav yored, which we mentioned is a korban that when you are chayv in that korban, it depends on your tax bracket. The more money you have, the bigger, the better the animal you get. Therefore, because we already had 2 in this Mishnah, which were Olav Yori discussion, that was their common denominator. Therefore, Tani Lu Gabe Hadade, they threw in the other 2, Yitzio Shabbos and Negoim. But by Shabbos, where you only had 1, we're not going to teach the other 3. By Negoim, where we only had 1, we're not going to teach the other 3. The idea the Tana Tarte, Tana Kulu, because we already had 2, we're going to teach 4. Says the Gemara, Pasach b'Shavuos, the Mishnah opens by Shavuos, but look at the whole first Mishnah. What did we spend time doing in the first Mishnah? Umefarish yedios hatuma. We spent literally kimat a blot in the Mishnah, not talking about anything related to Shavuos, except for the first 5 words of the Mishnah. I don't even know if it was that many words. Shavuos, Shtaim, Shehain, Arba. 4 words. And then the next 500 words have nothing to do with Shavuos. Why? Says the Gemara, I did the Zutran Milahu, because when it comes to the topic of Yedios Satuma, Zutran Milahu, there's a small amount of words, meaning it's a small sugya. Therefore, Pasuk Shari Lahu. He just taught the whole sugya. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi put in the whole sugya. V'hadar Tani Shuas Dinefishin Milahu. And after we finish the whole world of Yedios Satuma, which it's just funny because like Yedios Satuma is a very complicated sugya. There are multiple iterations. You knew in the beginning, you knew in the end, forgot in the middle. You didn't know in the beginning, you forgot, and then you actually did know. You didn't know in either. You intentionally did. There's so many iterations that need to be discussed. Some are chayiv korban olav yored, some are going to be covered by the seir lashem, some are covered by the korban on it's so complicated. It says Gemara zutrin milahu, small sugya. Just kind of it humbles us a little bit, you know. But that's not true by Shavuos. By Shavuos, it's nefishin milahu. All right, now we're going to learn over the next 10 lines what the first 3 lines of the Mishnah meant when it quoted those 4 cases. This is a very succinct description of the Shtaim Shehain Arbas, all 4 of them. So you might even want to mark this off as the very easy synopsis of the first 3 lines of our Mishnah. What was Shavuos Shtaim Shehain Arba? Shtaim was she'ochel v'shelo ochel in the future. What's Shehain Arba? The next 2, achalti in the past tense, v'shelo achalti in the past. Yedias hatuma shtayim shem arab. What does that mean? Shtayim. Yedias tumas kodesh. Yedias tumas mikdash. Knowing that you're tamei as it relates to eating kodesh, and know that you're tamei going into the mikdash. And shehein arba kodesh mikdash, where he knew he was tamei but forgot. But he forgot about the isser of going into the mikdash tamei. He forgot. So it wasn't about forgetting his tuma. He knew he was tamei. He just forgot about the halacha. So the first two was I forgot I was tamei. The second two was I didn't forget I was tamei. I forgot the halacha of eating and going into the mikdash betuma. Tziel Shabbos Shtayim Shein Arba. This is more familiar to us. Halfway down, Gimel Amud Aleph. Shtayim Hotzah de ani v'hotzah de bal habayis. So there's the hotzah of the ani. So I reach into your house and I motzi from your hand above the threshold. The ani, the bal habayis, does the same. He will pass to me. That's his hotzah. And then shehein arba. What are the next two? Hachnasa de ani v'hachnasa de bal habayis. There's bringing into the house of the ani. That's me passing to you. And then for the bal habayis, I'm holding it, and you, the bal habayis, reach and take in your machnis into the house. Those are the four iterations. That's Shabbos. What about Maros Negoim Shnaim Shein Arba Shnaim Seisu Baheres? These are two that are mentioned in the pasuk. Shein Arba Seis V'Toldasa Baheres V'Toldasa. It's not just the quote unquote avos of Seis and Baheres, but also the similar derivatives that are similar in Negoim. Beautiful. Mani Masnisin. Who is the author of our Mishnah? 6 lines from the bottom of the page. Lo Rabbi Shmuel, Lo Rabbi Akiva. Can't be either of them. Why not? I Rabbi Shmuel ha'amar eino chayev ela al ha'asid lavo. Rabbi Shmuel holds that it can't be that our Mishnah is talking about Rabbi Shmuel, because why? He holds that the only isser of Shavua is when you promise in the future, not when you promise about what you did in the past. So therefore, it can't be the author of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said Shtaim Shein Arba, and all 4 of them are usser, which means it can't be Rabbi Shmuel. I Rabbi Akiva, first of the long lines, ha'amar al he'elam tuma hu chayev, ve'eno chayev al he'elam mikdash. He also wouldn't have all 4. He would say that if you forget to go, if you forget that you're tuma, that you're tummy when you go into the mikdash, you're not chayev on helam mikdash. You are chayev, so he'd get 3 out of the 4, but one of them is not chayev. Can't be Rabbi Akiva either, because by the mikdash we said yedios hatuma shtaim shein arba, but really he'd say shtaim shein shalosh, so that doesn't work either. So says the Gemara, no, don't worry. Ibais ema Rabbi Shmuel, Ibais ema Rabbi Akiva. Could be either one. Ibais ema Rabbi Shmuel. They're going to be the same answer for both. I don't know why they didn't. Why it broke up this way. Mehen lechiyuv, mehen liftor. When it says shtaim shein arba, it does teach you 4 cases. It doesn't mean that all 4 of them are chayiv. I'm just teaching you 4 cases. Lav dafka that they're all chayiv. And Ibais ema Rabbi Akiva, the same thing. Mehen lechiyuv, mehen liftor. Says the Gemara, liftor. What do you mean liftor? That can't be. After all, turning to the top of Gimel Amud Beis, and we're going to go to the second to last line of this Amud. Hadumya demaros negoim tani. We have this idea that the halachos that we learned about Yedios Hatuma are similar to Maros Negoim. Ma hasam kulu l'chiyuva. Remember what we said by Negoim? It's Se'es and Baheres and their toldos, all of which are Aser, all of which are Chayiv. It's similar to our case. Ma hasam kulu l'chiyuva. Avhacha by Yedios Hatuma also nami kulu l'chiyuva. So you can't say that we're like Rabbi Akiva, we're like Rabbi Yishmael, mehen l'chiyuv and mehen liftor. That's not true. All of them have to be chayiv, which means we have no idea who the author of our Mishnah is. Because if you say like Rabbi Yishmael, then 2 out of the 4 should be patur. If you say like Rabbi Akiva, then 1 out of the 4 should be patur. But we need 4 out of 4 to be chayiv. So we have no idea who the author of our Mishnah is. It says the Gemara, don't worry, l'olam Rabbi Yishmael. V'chi lo mechayiv Rabbi Yishmael l'she'avar korban. When does Rabbi Shmuel say that you're not chayiv for the past? Remember, he said you're only chayiv for the future. What did he mean when he said you're not chayiv in the past? That's only klape korban. However, aval malkos chayiv mechayiv. But if you do make a shavua of achalti in the past, I promise you that I ate too much at dinner. It's a past tense. So then, if you're caught lying, you're right, Rabbi Shmuel. You're not chayiv a korban, he says. However, you are still chayiv malkos. So therefore, they're all l'chiyuv. Uchad Rava. This idea is reflected in the sheet of Rava. The Amar Rava, beferish ribsa Torah shvuas sheker dumya de shvuas shav. A shvuas sheker, a shvua of lying, is similar to a shvuas shav. A shvuas shav is something that you say that's completely ridiculous. I hereby promise that this chair is a dog. I hear the example Rabbi Resnick gave. I hereby promise that this boy is a girl. I'm like, you gotta just tone it down. This is like Trump era. You gotta just That was the example. It's mamish takachu. It's a Shavuos shav. Hareza, we have a tefillah shav, right? If you daven after something is already decided, it's tefillah shav. If the mitzvah is already there, the mitzvah is already there. Fine. Mashav l'sha'avar, and just like mashav, when you're looking at something that exists, you say the chair is a dog, right? Or whatever the example is, that's past tense. Af sheker nami l'sha'avar. The same thing is true by shua sheker. So this actually tracks that l'sha'avar we still have chiyuvim. That says the Gemara, Bishlama achalti v'lo achalti kid Rava. I could understand what you're saying in the past tense like Rava. Shalo ochel v'ochal nami lav sheyesh bo ma'isa. But if you're talking about the future, Shalo ochel v'ochal, and you ate nami, so then what is that? Shalo ochel v'ochal nami lav sheyesh bo ma'isa. You did something wrong. I'm not going to eat and then I ate. Ela ochel v'lo achal amai. But how could you ever get malkos in the case where you promise that you won't eat? Well, first of all, it's a lav she'ein bo maisu. What? Ela ochel, if I promise I will eat, and you didn't eat, amai, why would you get malkos? Thank you. Why would you get malkos? After all, says the Gemara, you would not get malkos because it's a lav she'ein bo maisu. So this actually is a very good question for Rabbi Shmuel. Like, how would we navigate this particular case? Says the Gemara, don't worry, because Sava Rabbi Shmuel, lav shein bo ma'isa lo ken alav. He says there's still malkos in this case. So therefore, all of the iterations, according to him, are still l'chiyuva, and that gives us a reasonable response that Rabbi Shmuel is the author of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, look, I hear you want to say that, but it does cause for another problem. Now, when I saw this line, I looked back like 10 times. I didn't see any Rabbi Yochanans in the Gemara. That's because I wasn't paying attention, because it's the next line. It says the Gemara, the Amar of Yochanan, halacha kistam Mishnah. In our Mishnah, the halacha is kistam. If we're saying our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shmuel holds lav she'ein bo ma'isa is loken alav, which means stam Mishnah is loken alav in a case of lav she'ein bo ma'isa. But that's a problem because the itmar, let's follow Rav Yochanan's trail here. Shavua she'ochel kikar ze hayom ve'avar hayom v'lo achla. Rav Yochanan v'Reish Lakish Tamri Tavayu Eino Loke. They both agree that you're not Loke in a case where you make a shvua that I will eat this kikar, but I never ended up eating it. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Eino Loke Mishum Tehava Lav She'ein Bo Ma'isa V'chol Lav She'ein Bo Ma'isa Ein Loken. There's our stira right there. Stira number one is we hold that a Stam Mishnah is correct. We pass him like a Stam Mishnah, and our Stam Mishnah is similar to Rabbi Shmuel, who holds lav shein bo ma'isa is loken, but Rabbi Yochanan himself holds that lav shein bo ma'isa is ein loken. Stira. Let's just learn Reish Lakish's opinion. We did learn this already. Reish Lakish amar eino loke asra safek kuv asra safek lo shma hasra. He did give asra, but the hasra is really not valid because it's an unknown if the person will ever act upon what happened. We don't know, and because if at 9 a.m. I make a neder that I'll eat this bread by 8 o'clock, we have no way of knowing if the Isser will ever be done. That's called Hasra Safek. It might be done, it might not be done, but the Hasra is invalid. So therefore, Reish Lakish held that in such a case, that it would be Eino Loke. But that brings us to a real stira, which is that Rav Yochanan holds that a Stam Mishnah is correct, which is our Mishnah, but he holds himself that Lav Shem Maisa is Eino Loke. So what do we do about this? Says the Gemara, don't worry about it. Rav Yochanan stama acharina ashkach. There's another Mishnah that disagrees with our Mishnah, meaning there's another Mishnah that holds lav shein bo ma'isa is eino loka like Rav Yochanan. And if Rav Yochanan has multiple Mishnayos that are stam to choose from, and one of them works in his favor, okay, then there's no stira anymore. Then this Mishnah is like Rabbi Shmuel and whoever his cronies are, and the other Mishnah is like Rav Yochanan, and we're good to go. What is that Mishnah? Hi stama. So we're actually going to take one approach today, and then we're going to stop. Hi stama. Which Mishnah is the Stam Mishnah that works like Rav Yochanan that would indicate that a lav she'ein bo ma'isa is eino loke? Ile mahai stama, and this is a Mishnah that we literally just saw, 10 blot ago. Ditznan. Aval hamosir bit tahor, someone who leaves over a korban pesach that is tahor. V'hashover b'tameh, one who breaks the bone which you're not supposed to break. Ve'etzem lo sish beruvo. If you break the bone of a tameh korban pesach, eino lokes arba'im. Now, bishlama shover b'tameh dichsi ve'etzem lo sish beruvo. That applies b'kasher v'lo b'pasol. I understand why eino loke. Aval hamosir b'tahor. If you do nosar My taima, why would we say enoloke? Lav mishum to have a lav she'en bo ma'isa. V'chol lav she'en bo ma'isa ein lokin alav. And then we have a beautiful Mari Makom that's a Stam Mishnah, just like Rav Yochanan needed. And now there's no conflict in Rav Yochanan, which means Rabbi Shmuel is a satisfactory answer to our Mishnah. He have everything. That's the whole top half of the Amud. There's no steer in Rav Yochanan. Kaftor Referach. We're good to go. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Umimai to Rav Yaakov. How do we know that it's like the Shita of Rav Yaakov, the Amar, the one who holds fundamentally that Lav Shein Bomaisa Ein Lokin Alav? Dilma Rav Yehuda and the reason why you're putter from Malkos is not because Lav Shein Bomaisa is Ein Malkin, but rather Mishum Deba Kasav Litein Aseh Achar Lo Saseh, but because it's a Lav Hanitak Le'aseh. What does the pasuk say by Korban Pesach? The pasuk says, we'll see in a moment, Halav Hachilaki. Without the Lav Hanitak La'aseh, Yutaka would have been Chayav Malkos. What's our Lav Hanitak La'aseh? The Tanya. The Brisa says, Lo Sosiru Mimenu Ad Boker, by the Korban Pesach, Shteit and Chumash, you're not allowed to leave over the Korban Pesach till the morning. That's your Lo Sa'aseh. What's the Aseh? V'hanosar Mimenu Ad Boker Ba'ish Tisrofu. So that is your classical Lav Hanitak Le'aseh. In that case, there's no Malkos because it's a Lav Hanitak Le'aseh. What if there were to not have been the Aseh following the Lo Sa'aseh? You would have been Chayav Malkos. So it's the exact opposite of how we wanted to get a Stam Mishnah for Rav Yochanan. There, by the Aseh and the Lo Sa'aseh, Ba'akasuv, Litein Aseh Achar Lo Sa'aseh, Lomar, Shein Loken Alav Divi Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yaakov Omer, Lo Min Hashem Huzeh. That's not because of that. Ella, Mishum Dahav Alav Shein Bo Ma'isa, V'Alav Shein Bo Ma'isa, Ein Loken Alav. So that it's completely wired differently than you might have thought. And this Mari Makom does not work for the sake of Rav Yochanan because that Mishnah could have been learned in various ways. He needs a better Mari Makom. And as you can see, the next words say Elahai Stama Ashkach, that he found another one. We'll start there tomorrow night, 2 lines from the bottom, 9:27. We did a siyum, we ate a meal, and we learned a blot of Gemara. Wishing you all a beautiful night.